Welcome back. Very high energy because we're moving on to a very exciting portion of the course. We've now seen how to take a database in MySQL, everything we know, and combine it with a node file, a single file that doesn't do, it depends on your impression of it. It doesn't do a whole lot, it just inserts, but it inserts 500 things, which is pretty cool, and they're all randomly generated. But that's not an application. That's still useful for our application. We'll be able to use that. Just to recap, the whole reason we're doing that is so that when we start up our application, we have some data in there. We have something to work with. Rather than totally empty database or something that has 2 users, we have 500 realistic, randomly generated emails and created at dates. Okay, so we've done that. We have that. Now we're moving on to the web application portion. So remember, this is Join Us, our mailing app or waitlist app, where there's a nice page it looks styled, it's nice. It says Join Us in big letters. It says how many users have currently joined. And there's also a guarantee 100%. It's not a cult. And then there's a form at the bottom where you can actually enter your email to join the list. So we have to get there. We're going to start with the basics of a web app. So just like we had to start with the basics of Node, we're now starting with the basics of building web applications. Okay, that brings us to something called Express. So if you've taken my other course, or if you're familiar with Node and you've used it in any web development capacity, you've probably come across the framework Express. It's a web development framework. It helps us make applications faster. So if you're not familiar with frameworks, in 10 seconds, what they are tools, libraries, that are a bit more complex, a bit more controlling of how you write your code. They dictate things for you. You play by their rules, but they help you make things faster. So a web development framework helps you make websites faster. There are iOS or game development frameworks that help you make games faster. So they kind of limit your freedom a bit, but they empower you because they speed you up and they let you focus on the things that matter. So with all that said, Express is very simple, a lightweight framework. What it allows us to do is once we install it and include it in a file, we can very quickly make a web application. So something like Faker is a package that allows us to quickly get random data, a very small kind of feature it's useful, but it's a small thing. Express is a package that when you use it and install it, it does a lot. It sets up a server for you. It listens for incoming requests. It figures out how to respond to requests. It handles HTML and CSS and responding with that. It figures out how to parse a response body. All these things we'll go into, but it does a lot. So let's take a look very quickly at the documentation, expressjs.com, a fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework for Node.js. As you can see, you can just install it. npm install express. We'll talk about -- save in just a second. And you can read more about it here. Basically, it provides a robust set of features for web applications. It's lightweight. So what that means, if I go over here to Node.js Frameworks, it's a site that I found, it has a list of some of the most popular Node frameworks. There are a ton of them out there because people love using frameworks for good reason. They help you make things faster. There's 2 categories that this person has categorized them into, Sinatra-like and Rails-like. Basically, this comes from Ruby. These are 2 Ruby frameworks, Sinatra and Rails. Rails, you might have heard of. It's a bigger framework, very popular in Ruby, but it controls everything. It's very strict. Sinatra is much lighter weight, meaning that you have more freedom to make decisions. It's less opinionated, which means that you can configure things how you want, but also the advantage of something like Rails is that you don't have to make decisions. For example, how to structure your files. Where do I put my CSS files? In Rails, you don't have a choice. In Sinatra, you have to decide. So with that said, there are all these frameworks for Node. Express is the top one here that we're going to use, but there are other ones. There's Sails and Getty are 2 that I've used. Koa, I don't know if it's pronounced Koa or KOA, is one that's becoming popular now. A lot of people are using too. So anyways, I'm just trying to point out here that there are a bunch of frameworks. Just like when I said we could have used any language to talk to MySQL, we could use any Node framework to make a web app. We're happening to use Express. Okay, so the first thing I recommend here is to look at the documentation for Express. If you're curious, if you haven't taken a course in it, you're not familiar with it, or you have never worked with a web framework, the documentation is pretty straightforward. If you click on Getting Started, you don't have to go through all of it. But if we actually go, let's do like a hello world. Here's a simple app that we'll be making in just a moment. But it has a nice kind of walkthrough of using Express, how you write certain things, what the syntax is, and then there's a guide that's much more in depth, and then there's a reference. When you click on API reference, make sure you're doing 4.x, the most recent, and this is sort of like think of the MySQL docs. There's all these methods that we see over here, and you can read about them over here. So we'll be referring back to these docs as we go through the course. And for now, that's where we'll leave off. All I wanted to do in this video was introduce Express, tell you that it's a Node framework, show you the website, the documentation. Then in the next video, we're going to install it and create our own first application, first web app.